Hello and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh Singh, and in this video we shall discuss the Gazette magazine for 8th September 2021, your daily guide to UPSC current affairs. Now, the hot selling articles in the market today are: first, Prime Minister unveiling some important reforms for implementing the national education policy. So we'll understand some important reforms. The second one, Chandigarh becoming the first city in India to have a pollen calendar of its own. The third one, T+1 settlement mechanism of the SEBI. So these three articles in the snapshot section. This day in history has been dedicated to international literacy. Featured news for the day. It is on a different video, and rest of the discussion is on another video that you're currently watching. So we have two videos on the Gazette magazine. Do ensure you watch this featured news as well. Featured news for today is on the system of financial management. This is on account aggregator. Now, this is where we will understand what was the need for India to have such an integrated system. Also, we will understand what are the various benefits arising out of it and what are the concerns raised in the process. Image of the day is on goldfish. Terms and concept: scrub typhus disease. Then we have some important financial powers being delegated to the armed forces. The third one, OS Index 21, what is it? And fourth one, tokenization of the card transactions. Editorials of the day. The three editorials that we discussed today are: first, about increase in the exports and how are they happening in India this year. The second one is about the comparison between China and India on the basis of their edtech companies. And the third one is about India-US partnership in the times of crisis that America is facing because of withdrawal from Afghanistan. The case study of the day is on a doctor couple who are doing some wonderful work in Jharkhand. Let's start the discussion. We have dedicated this day in history to International Literacy Day because it was on this day, September 8, 1966, that UNESCO declared International Literacy Day. Now, United Nations spoke about it, but you can look at this image. You can look at this image clearly. This is about the adults, the young adults that we are speaking of. So, the focus of this mission this time is on the young adults, and also you can see these digital devices. So, the main idea of this Literacy Day is about digital skills for non-literate youth and adults. So do remember this kind of transformation in the technology of education that is happening these days. The first snapshot of today is on Prime Minister unveiling important mechanisms, important schemes under which the implementation of national education policy will happen. Now, this is a very important article. Before getting into the details of article, I would like to share that we have been covering national education policy and its various dimensions in some of the other snapshots editorials. Now you can look, I have searched national education policy Edukemy, and I do see one of the important editorials that talks about the twin deficits. So this twin deficit was about the marginalized section, that is the Muslims, and it was also about another deficit that was about English education. So this becomes an important editorial, right? When you want to critically discuss the national education policy. Look at the other article, how NEP can transform higher education in India. So this was another snapshot that we shared. Academic Bank of Credit, really very important snapshot. This can come as a question in itself, right? So you need to know what is this Bank of Credit. We have discussed is in one of the snapshots. We have also taken one of the videos on this. Nipun Bharat program. We will study about this again. So this is about the education of the children under Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, right? So primary children need to understand basic numeracy, basic skills of learning and education. So this is about that program. Holistic skilling. So these are various different articles in which we have discussed national education policy. Now, getting back to the snapshot, this is about the Prime Minister who has launched important initiatives on Shiksha Parv 2021, National Literacy Day. Remember, 8th of September, we just spoke of this. So, he has launched one important program for the differently abled. This one, the first one, Indian Sign Language Dictionary, is for the people who are hearing impaired. So, for those people, there'll be video on the meaning of the text in the video format. So, this is one. The second one is talking books. This is for the visually impaired, visually challenged people. So these books will be auditory in nature, right? So we will be able to understand the text through listening to it. So this is the second one. The third important framework is called as School Quality Assessment and Accreditation Framework, SQAA. Now this is about self-assessment and external assessment of the school institution, right? So there are various frameworks: beneficiary satisfaction, scholastic process, right? Infrastructure, human resources, and then we have management and governance, leadership, inclusive practices, right? Inclusive means all the community communities, all the genders included. So there are various weightage given to all the various segments of this evaluation parameter. Now this assessment has to be done at self level and external assessment also, a very important appraisal mechanism of school performance. Then we have Nishtha teacher training program. Now the government has realized that good students can only become if we have good enabled and trained teachers. So therefore teacher training program becomes very important under Nipun Bharat. Now Nipun Bharat, as we spoke, this is also about enabling the small children who are in class 3, class 5, who do have issues with basic reading, basic numeracy, the mathematical skills. So under this scheme, we are training the teachers. Now, Vidyanjali portal has also been launched. This portal is on people who want to be volunteers in providing services to the education developers. Now, Vidyanjali portal has also been launched, and this portal is about having volunteers to participate in the field of education. So volunteers like donors, CSR initiatives, or individuals can come and participate through this portal. Snapshot 2 is on Pollen Calendar. It is the first time in India that Pollen Calendar has been launched, and this is in the city of Chandigarh. Now, there are certain advantages of pollen and certain issues associated with pollen. What are the advantages? Now, pollen is the one which helps in the fertilization, in the distributed fertilization of a plant species. So, these small particles, if they are spread over long distances, we will have increased diversity of a particular plant at different locations. So, spread of pollens is important, right? Pollen gets spread through birds, through insects, right, to distributed places. It also gets spread through winds, right? But what are the issues? The issues associated with pollen are the health issues. If human intakes it with their nose, if in the breathing, this can cause severe lung issues as well, right? So these are the issues, and that is the reason that we have created this pollen calendar for the first time. So this will talk about the location specificity of the pollens, also about the local distributed flora. So all the flowers and all the plant species which are present at particular place, and they spread through spread of pollens. So these plants will be located at places. This has already been implemented in countries like USA, UK, and several places in Europe. So this will be able to tell us what is the season in which these kind of pollen spread rapidly. So we will be able to save ourselves from such kind of severe infection, right? There are a lot of people in India who are suffering because of pollen infection. As much as 20 to 30% of population in India suffers because of pollen grains. And this is where this kind of calendar can help. How can it help? It can help people by understanding what are the different kind of pollen mechanisms in a certain place. What are the plant species which spread their pollens? So this is one clear identification of those species. So this is how people will be able to gauge what is their infection in the body and if that infection is present in that locality or not. This is one. The second one is to be able to forecast the right season in which they should have protective gear wearing themselves, right? So this is one important aspect of it. The third snapshot is on T+1 settlement mechanism. Now, in the present architecture, SEBI is the one which is into the trading of stocks. The stock market, it is the one who regulates it. It is having a T+2 settlement mechanism. Now today, if I am purchasing a stock in a particular company, the settlement of this total trade will happen 2 days after today. That means not tomorrow, but a day after tomorrow, I will be able to get the shares. I have purchased them today at today's rate, but I will be getting them day after tomorrow. Now, SEBI has said that it is voluntary and people and different exchanges can opt for T+1 settlement also. That means the next day itself, I will be able to get the shares. Now, there are certain advantages and disadvantages. Now, every issue has to be looked critically from the positive perspective and the one which can be towards the negative side as well, right? So let us look at what are the benefits first. Now, benefits is it increases the amount of liquidity in the market. How? See, when there is 2 days time, when there is 2 days lag, this money is caught up here, no? If there was a 1 day lag, the person could have sold this money, right? So in these 2 days lag, the money has been locked up. So if we have a reduced time, this will increase the amount of money available in the market, right? This is one. What about the settlement risk? Suppose the price today was 100. The price tomorrow was 90 and the price day after tomorrow was 70. Now the person, if they have received this transaction the next day, they will be able to save their money by selling it immediately. But if there's increased lag of time in this transaction, there will be increased vulnerability. So settlement risk is also there. Now this also decreases the amount of margin that people have in case there are 2 days of transactions, in case there are 1 day of transactions. Now let us look at the important concerns. The first concern is time zone problems. Now since this mechanism is voluntary, there are additional complications and issues. In T+1 mechanism, there can be a difference of 12 hours also if there is an international participant in this transaction. There can be a difference of 24 plus 12 hours also, complete day. And if the person making transaction in America is there, then there is a complete haywire, there's a lot of confusion about time zone here also. So this reduces the amount of time available to a person, right? So this is one. The second one is operational challenge. What is the operational challenge? Now, since this system is voluntary right now, if one of the exchanges, suppose NSE, National Stock Exchange, it says that we will do T+1 transactions, and BSE does T+2 transaction, Bombay Stock Exchange. So this is where there is incoherency in transactions in different places, right? So one day and 2 day, this makes a lot of issues. The third one is structural challenges. Now, this has to be a coordinated, expensive structure because we are reducing the time lag. So that is why this becomes important to understand the concerns of T+1 as well. Image of the day is on the rare whole fish species. Now, these are rare species and it is very tough to even find one of them. But a fisherman in Maharashtra has caught 150 of these gold fishes itself. So this is a gold mine for him. Now, the fishes, they have been pegged at more than 1.3 crore rupees, these 150 fishes that he has found. So this is almost a gold mine for him. Now, also, this fish is called as the fish with the heart of gold. Why? Because it is said that it has got some pouch in stomach, and that pouch is sold for a lot of money. Its fins are also utilized for medicinal value and for wine production. The first term in news is scrub typhus. This is a disease that is getting spread in Uttar Pradesh. It is spread by the bacteria, but it is also aided by the vector. Who is the vector? Who is the vector which is carrying this disease? It is carried by chiggers. So what are these chiggers? These are the mites. Not the adult mites, but the baby mites, larvae of the mites, they spread this disease. Now, this forms an important question for the pre-exam. Where are they found? These mites are found in moist areas, grassy areas, the places which have forests, lakes, streams and rivers. Also, there is no vaccination for this disease, and what are being used? Presently, we use antibiotic for treatment. Now, do recollect yesterday's snapshot where we spoke of antimicrobial resistance. And see, these are the kind of diseases where we intake certain kind of antimicrobial drugs, and we also increase the resistance of these drugs to us itself. The second term and concept in use is the important reforms that have been introduced in the defense ministry. Now, at these times, at critical times, when a lot of equipment has to be purchased, the purchasal of equipment does not happen over a short period of time. The tenders, the appraisal, and then after that the final approval of this purchasal, this might take even decades of time. But what happens if India is into a war? What happens if India requires certain important instruments and gadgets in a very short period of time? And this is where the reforms were required. So the government has now stated that critical equipment can be hired also, right? So critical equipment like air-to-air refuelers. What are these? So in case our fighter jet is flying from one place to another, if it has to do a sortie from Jamnagar in Gujarat to Jaisalmer, it can fly. But if it has to fly to Srinagar and come back to Jamnagar, it may not be able to do so because every aircraft has got a maximum capacity of refueling, right? And it has to be refueled again in air itself. So we need air-to-air refuelers. Another plane, and it will extend its nozzle and give input as fuel, air turbine fuel to this another aircraft, right? So these are the kind of critical equipment that need to be purchased. But if they are not getting purchased, hire them immediately. And this is where the defense forces have been given certain amount of money so that they can make this kind of hiring faster. This will also increase the operational preparedness for us, promote ease of doing business, and make decision making very quick in defense segment. The third term in news is OS Index 21. It is about the biennial, that means once conducted in 2 years, and bilateral Australia-India naval exercise being done in Southeast Asia region. Right now it started at Darwin, that is in Australia, but this exercise is also about increasing India's presence in the South China Sea region. We have also covered a number of editorials on why India's increased presence in South China Sea is required for increased amount of trade in South Asia region. The fourth term in news is tokenization of card transactions. Just yesterday we studied how there are increased number of UPI transactions through autopay mode. This is happening because RBI has mandated that all the online companies, e-commerce companies, they cannot store our data online. So this is what is tokenization about. They cannot store the data. Earlier, the system was device-based tokenization. So every device would not be storing our device would not be storing the card details. Instead of this, the device will be sent a token, a 6-digit code, code to approve your transaction, right? This was it. But now we have a card on file tokenization system. This means that the internet company, the e-commerce also will not be able to store the data. Instead of this, they will be the transaction will be authenticated with the help of the similar kind of tokens, 6-digit, 8-digit codes, right? Now the best part about is that there'll be an advanced authentication factor in it, so increased security mechanisms for the consumers. Also, the transactions will be covered under desktop wearables, for example smartwatches, mobile phones, all of them.
Welcome back. Same learnings, but from a different platform. Now, we were at the first editorial. The first editorial chiefly talks about India's export journey in the last 1 year and also traces the history of the last 10 years. The editorial begins by saying that India's merchandise export has increased phenomenally in the first 5 months of 2021. It says that there has been a steady rise of 67% as compared to the same period last year. But the most important factor for it is the low base effect, because last year was the lockdown and therefore we see a phenomenal rise. But it says no, it's not just that. There has been an overall recovery trend as compared to the last 10 years. So in the last 10 years, the economy of export was hovering between $250 to $330 billion, right? And the maximum that it attained was 17% of the GDP, the export economy only export. And it also later came down to 11% of GDP. However, this time we have seen a steady rise. In fact, now since you can understand this $250 billion and $330 billion, the hovering game, you will be able to gauge that $160 billion of trade, external trade, has happened by India in the first 5 months only of 2021. So that means that India's trade has increased considerably after lockdown, right? It says that one of the reasons is petroleum prices. Because they are rising, we will also see rising of the POL, petroleum, oil and lubricants, because India not only consumes it, India also exports it after processing. So this is one of the reasons, but it is not just that. We have also seen a steady rise of the merchandise export of other items as well. What are the other items? One good example of this is the employment intensive sectors. So we are talking of the pearl, precious stones. We are also speaking of the cotton garments. We are speaking of the fabrics, accessories. These have recovered, right? And they were not recovering in the last decade and they have gone up again. So this is a very good sign. Also, India's automobile sector, it has not recovered fully, but yes, it is in the path of recovery. Now, China has become the second most important trading destination, export destination for the country. And this is a good news for the country. So first is USA, the second one is China right now, and the third one is UAE. Largely it is UAE, but because of this particular year, now it is China. Now, all I would like to bring to your focus is the export. What are the kind of the things that we export in terms of the merchandise? So first is mineral oil, fuel, etc. And the second one is the pearls, semi-precious and precious gems. Third is machinery parts, and along with that you see vehicle, other parts, organic chemicals, pharmaceutical, electrical machinery parts, iron, steel, cotton and apparel. So these are the chiefly most important exports from India. This is of the year 2000 comparison between 16, 17 and 18. However, you will see a general trend. There has not been a radical transformation in what we export since the last 2-3 years. The second editorial talks about the comparison between India and China's policy over the edtech companies. The editorial begins by saying that there's been a huge investment in the education technology sector after the corona pandemic because of the online schooling mechanism. And online schooling is just the beginning. The whole education technology is about faster internet connection, social distancing and learning, which has been curated. It has been individually specified, artificial intelligence based, teaching analytics, cloud computing, learning apps, all those form the component of the education technology. So technology based education, it is not just about learning online, but having teaching aids, cloud computing, artificial intelligence also applied into it. And this is what we at Edukemy are also doing, all these things, right? Now, it talks about the important comparison between what China has done right now and what is India's policy. This is where the editorial becomes very interesting. The editorial says that 240 million school-going children are there in China. That means from class 1 to around class 10th and 12th, right? So in 2018, we had seen almost 50% of global investments pouring in China in edtech sector. And this is a huge amount of funding that we are talking of. India has also seen huge funding. We have got various organizations, for example, Byju's, for example, Upgrade, and they have been funded very well lately. Now, what has China done? China recently has initiated a measure by the Chinese Communist Party, and it has said that the private tutoring education companies will have to register as non-profit organizations. They cannot make profit. They have to register. They also have to not teach anything academic in the weekends or holidays. And also there will be supervision on them. So they will be requiring regulatory approvals. So what is this kind of mechanism in which we are trying to regulate private education? This is where the editorial says that the government has not given any explanation on this, the Chinese government. However, speculations are being made that this is happening because there is social inequity, because government wants to remove social inequity. It wants the private education to reduce and government-based education to increase. Okay, so this is one speculation. The second speculation is that children are overworked. So why are we giving them work at weekends? Why are we giving them, making this so commercial that children are bogged down with studies? This is the second idea. But the third idea is very interesting. The third idea says that Chinese Communist Party, it has got 7% membership of the nation, 7% of the elite people who understand education, who understand Chinese culture, who understand Chinese way of life. And they're selected through such a rigorous process that it is almost equivalent to a selection in Ivy League universities. Now, it says that 40%, the editorial says that almost 40% of the people who are into the Chinese Communist Party as members, they are from the universities. And where do they receive education? They receive their education from the class 1th and class 12th itself, their schooling itself. And if it is private based, the whole platform in which China wanted to build itself, it would expand. And this expansion is not something that will liked by Chinese Communist Party. Why? Because it will start to challenge the Chinese Communist Party's norms, right? And therefore, there are two kind of things that it is speaking of. The editorial speaks of behavioral surplus. That means the people will be behaving in a different way after digital interactions, after interaction online. And we agree to it. We are influenced by interactions online, right? And this will enable a person in two ways, the whole system in two ways. The first system is it will have a new knowledge system present on what Chinese people are looking at on internet. This is one. And the second one, it will also change the behavior of the person, right? So this is what the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want. It does not want to create those bureaucrats which are in an education system which have been built by private education. On the other hand, it compares with India and India's education policy. India is ready for privatization. And it says, do we really want to have bureaucrats who have been trained in private institutes? So this is the question it raised, but I would still believe, this is the editorial, but I personally would believe that this conclusion is partially baked. We are not only talking of future bureaucrats being trained in private education, we are also talking of efficiency in education. We are also talking of excellence in education. We are also talking of multiple layers of educational advancements which are being offered by artificial intelligence. Now, private funding is important here. And this is where your article, your understanding must be holistic. This article does provide some understanding, and I have provided some additional inputs to counter those points. The third editorial is important with respect to India-US relationships during the time when USA has withdrawn from Afghanistan. The editorial begins by saying that USA has ended its 20-year-long war with Afghanistan, and this is the longest fought war by USA anywhere. And does this indicate the end of leadership and dominance of America? So the editorial says that the rise of and the fall of great powers has been determined by various factors. Important factor is the interplay between economic wealth and the military power. Now, they both aid each other. See, when a country gains economically, it will try to have military prowess as well. And if the balance is not maintained, if it is maintaining itself militarily far more than its economic progress, then there will be increased spendings in military, and then it will lead to less economic wealth, right? So this is a vicious cycle, and it is a virtuous cycle. Both of it, right? So they draw from each other, economic prosperity and military power. However, is it the military overreach of America that is responsible for its downfall? Not sure, because sometimes this military power is necessary, but sometimes it becomes devastating. And we can see in terms of USSR, it got defragmented. But what was the cause of it? Was it because it was excess in military power? No, it was not that. The cause of it was increased democratization, increased nationalism, increased fervor for domestic policies, reforms in domestic policies. These were the factors for USSR disintegration. Let's talk of Vietnam War. Yes, America fought Vietnam War and it was a bitter experience. It was just like what they are experiencing right now in Afghanistan. But we cannot conclude if all these wars resulted in the end of leadership of USA and its dominance because of increased military presence, right? We cannot conclude this time as well, right? Now we have seen that America has been in polarization because of its elections, right? Presidential elections and a lot of turmoil in domestic policies. Yet America remain at the helm of the democracy affairs globally as well, right? We have seen how America has initiated this COVID vaccine mechanism, and it has been helped by the government-private partnership in America. Not only that, we see these multilateral treaties, organizations, and alliances. They're all being led by America in the present world. Yes, China is also rising. China is rising, but it is not the one which is global leader right now. In fact, China is conforming to America's policies to a great extent. Also, China's rise is there, but it is not the most credible nation these times, right? We have also seen how China has tried to subjugate the developing and underdeveloped countries through its the long-term loan mechanisms, right? And this is where the editorial concludes by saying that India and America have had 2 decades of renewed partnership. 2 decades of renewed partnership after the 2008 India-US nuclear deal. And therefore, this India-US partnership is the most vital one internationally to counter China's presence and to ensure that there is democracy prevalent in the world. Today's case study is of a very interesting doctor couple. They returned back to Jharkhand, their home place, and after that, they initiated a revolution in the health system of the whole tribal communities in Jharkhand. Now, this couple, Dr. Prashant Tripathi and Dr. Narmala Nair, they have started an Ekjut Foundation. Now, let us look at the challenges before the opportunities that they grabbed. One challenge was the language. The language of the tribal Ho community was different as compared to what language they would use. Not just that, you should also look at the diagnostic systems, right? There was hardly any infrastructure for it, and there was hardly any data. There was no survey on who is ill, who is not, what is the prevalent system of malnutrition in the state or the particular place they are working. These were the challenges, and they conducted surveys. After that, they initiated a self-enabling mechanism. Let's see what that is. So firstly, they initiated a mechanism to address the malnutrition of the children so that children could get medical attention on time. So this is one. The second one is bottom approach. They initiated a mechanism in which the people will be able to gauge their own health. And if they are able to gauge their own health, they will be able to heal themselves. There will be traditional mechanisms for people to gain better health, right? So they are trying to have a peer learning approach in health also. So this is very much sustainable. Self-analysis of people by identifying the problems and then probably giving some alternate solutions as well, right? It also increased women participation. It also increased the minimalist approach of the government here. So people will be able to help themselves. And this was done through very, very interesting mechanisms like interactive games, storytelling, picture cards, role plays. Right. So such is the interesting story of Ekjut Foundation from Jharkhand. It also helped in the working in the sphere of mental health, in gender-based violence issues, and to dissolve some kind of myth and superstition that do exist in tribal communities. There's an excellent example you can give while you present cases of development in the tribal regions. Right. And this is what is expected out of you as you get into the civil services. If you like this video, if you like our effort, do share some love on us through comments, shares, and likes. If you subscribe to the channel, you will receive timely updates. Thanks for watching.